Have you ever wondered why that guy, who isn't even handsome, always gets the woman he wants? Have you felt that pang in your stomach when the woman you like talks about another man with that special sparkle in her eyes? There's an ancient truth about female desire that has been deliberately hidden from men like you. I'm not talking about cheap tricks or superficial techniques. I'm about to reveal a code that defies everything you thought you knew about attraction. A secret so powerful that Machiavelli kept it under lock and key for 5 centuries. What you'll discover in the next few minutes could completely transform your relationships. If something inside you is already stirring with unease, like this right now, because this is only for men who are ready to awaken the predator sleeping within, I promise you that after today, you'll never be invisible to her again. Let's dive into the depths of what truly activates female desire at a primitive level. Listen carefully, because you're about to confront the biggest lie you've been believing your whole life. That feeling of emptiness you get when you see her walk away with another man. That powerlessness that consumes you when you realize she only sees you as a friend. It's not a coincidence. It's the result of systematic programming that has castrated your true masculine nature. They've turned you into a lamb when you were born a wolf. And the worst part is, you've voluntarily collaborated in your own domestication. Look back for a moment. How many times have you bought an expensive gift hoping to impress her? How many times have you answered her messages instantly, dropping everything you were doing as if your life depended on her reply? How many times have you been that understanding man who patiently listens to her problems with other guys while you inwardly bleed from frustration? And tell me, where has all that led you? Straight to the friend zone, that emotional purgatory where men who are too gentle, too available, too predictable languish. They've taught you that being attentive, respectful, and considerate is the path to a woman's heart. I'm not saying these qualities are bad. In fact, they're fundamental to being a good human being. But alone, isolated from other more primary and powerful components, they don't generate attraction. They don't create desire. They don't spark that obsession that makes it impossible for her to get you out of her mind. Society, romantic movies, even your own mother, all sold you the same story. Be a gentleman and she'll love you for it. But the reality is brutally different. While you perfectly follow their script, she dreams of the rebel who breaks all the rules. While you carefully craft messages to her, she fantasizes about the one who barely responds. While you plan the perfect date, she wonders what it would be like to be swept away by someone who doesn't ask permission. They've domesticated you to see your natural impulses as toxic, to apologize for your masculinity, to repress that primordial energy which, when correctly channeled, is exactly what women subconsciously crave. You've been programmed to fail from the start. Think about it this way. Why does that guy who isn't particularly attractive, who doesn't have a great job, who isn't extraordinarily intelligent, manage to attract women who seem out of his league? It's not luck. It's because he possesses something you've lost or never developed. An instinctive understanding of the silent language of desire. Seduction doesn't happen in the territory of logic. It doesn't unfold in the realm of rational conversations or considerate gestures. It happens in the depths of instinct, in the reptilian brain, in those ancestral layers where decisions are made long before the conscious mind even realizes it. Do you think women consciously choose who to fall in love with? Of course not. It's their primitive brain that decides, that ancient part that comes from caveman times, when survival depended on choosing the right partner. And that primitive brain isn't impressed with flowers or expensive dinners. It's not moved by romantic gestures taken from movies. It's activated by signals of value, of social dominance, of protective capability. It ignites at mystery, at tension, at that controlled danger that awakens its most primal instincts. For over 10 years, I've studied this phenomenon, testing it on the battlefield of human interactions, observing what works and what fails miserably. And what I've discovered contradicts almost everything the relationship experts out there preach, selling sweet but completely ineffective advice. Do you want to know the secret nobody tells you? Women don't want a man who is always available, who is there every time they snap their fingers. They want a man who has options, a man who doesn't need them to feel complete. Paradoxical, right? The less you need her, the more she will desire you. It's a contradiction that defies all conventional romantic logic, but it's a psychological truth as solid as the laws of physics. Understanding this doesn't mean becoming an insensitive jerk. It's not about manipulating or deceiving. It's about reconnecting with your true masculine nature, the one society has forced you to suppress. It's about understanding the secret code that only about 3% of men know and apply, those men who seem to have an inexplicable magnetism, who attract effortlessly, who maintain interest without begging for attention. And now you'll ask yourself, how do you create that aura of detached interest? How do you show you don't need her without seeming cold or calculating? That's exactly what I'm going to reveal to you. A system based on 4 fundamental pillars that will transform the way you relate to women forever. These aren't superficial tricks or manipulative techniques. They are deep principles that awaken genuine attraction because they connect with the most primal aspects of female psychology. The truth is, you've been playing a game whose rules you don't know, with a board tilted against you. But after today, that will change forever. You're about to discover the map that will guide you from invisibility to the center of her deepest desire. The first pillar of seduction isn't what they've led you to believe. It doesn't start with a simple, polite hello that fades into the air without a trace. It doesn't begin with predictable questions about her day or superficial comments about the weather. It begins with a rupture, a fracture in the expected, a spark in the silence that awakens something dormant within her. Imagine for a moment the constant bombardment of attention an attractive woman receives. Dozens of men approaching with the same worn-out lines, the same transparent intentions, the same desperate energy. Her brain has developed an automatic filter that immediately discards anything that sounds familiar, anything that smells of need, anything that feels like just another one of the same empty interactions she's experienced hundreds of times. Your first move must be like a knife cutting through that filter. It must make her stop, blink, readjust her perception. It must interrupt her automatic pattern of classification and dismissal. It must make her think, this one is different. Imagine approaching her, but instead of being predictable like everyone else, you say something like, you look like someone who hates superficial conversations, but secretly loves chaos. In that moment, something changes in her expression. She pauses, blinks. Her brain activates like an engine that just received high-octane fuel. Why does this happen? Because you've interrupted her automatic pattern, that mental filter programmed to automatically discard generic men who approach her. In that instant, you are no longer one of them. You've managed to make her curious, and curiosity is the gateway drug to desire. This is what most men never understand. The first sentence is the foundation of the entire game that follows. It's like the opening move in chess. It sets the tempo for the entire game. It defines the emotional battlefield. If you open weak, with something common and predictable, you've already put yourself on the defensive. You'll spend the rest of the interaction chasing her, trying to regain lost ground. But if you open strong, with something unexpected, poetic, or slightly absurd, you gain the advantage in the frame. Now she's in your world, playing by your rules. The first move isn't about being agreeable or harmless. It's about taking control of the emotional rhythm from the very first second, establishing that you are not just another one of the herd of predictable men who approach her with the same tired lines and approaches she's heard 1,000 times. And this isn't just verbal, it's energetic. It's your tone, your timing, the deliberate calm in your way of speaking, that slight smile as if you already know how this will all end. Men who approach with high-frequency, predictable phrases are discarded by her subconscious in seconds. But a man who walks with a sense of controlled unpredictability, he becomes a question she wants to answer. Never forget this. Women are attracted to what they don't immediately understand. The female mind is designed to solve emotional puzzles, to decipher enigmas, to understand complexity. When you present a completely transparent and predictable front, you eliminate all mystery, all possibility of discovery. You've revealed all your cards before the game even begins. Being enigmatic doesn't mean being fake or artificially complicated. It means showing facets of yourself that are authentic but unexpected. It means breaking the social script that everyone blindly follows. It means creating moments of genuine connection that defy expectations. Remember the last time you met someone truly interesting? It probably wasn't because they followed all the rules of social interaction, but because they broke them in an intriguing way. They asked questions no one else would. They shared observations no one else would see. They existed on a slightly different plane than everyone else, and that made them magnetic. That's the power of the first move. It's not about what you say exactly. It's about how sharply you cut through the everyday noise. It's about projecting a clear psychological signal. I'm not here to desperately impress you. I'm here to see if you're worth the game. Most men approach a woman as if they're asking for a favor, as if their time and attention were a precious gift she can grant or deny. The man who masters the first move completely reverses this dynamic. He approaches as someone who is offering something valuable, as someone who is evaluating whether she deserves his emotional investment. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you present yourself as the selector, not the selected, she instinctively strives to impress you. The hunter becomes the prey, and she doesn't even realize how the shift occurred. When your first move makes her stop and think, when it forces her out of autopilot and to truly see you, when it awakens her genuine curiosity, the game is already yours. You've created a space of possibility where before there was only routine. You've planted a seed of fascination that, correctly nurtured, will blossom into pure desire. Remember, you're not trying to impress her with pretty words or empty compliments. You're creating a rupture in her reality, a moment of pause in her mental routine, a spark of something new and fascinating. You're provoking something within her that she had forgotten she could feel. And when you achieve this, when your first move cuts through her defenses like a sharp scalpel, you're ready for the second pillar, the attitude that turns that initial spark into an uncontrollable blaze of desire. This is where the entire foundation of attraction begins to harden into something unbreakable, something untouchable, something extraordinarily rare in the modern world. True confidence isn't what you say, it's what you don't need to say. It's a presence that precedes your words, an energy that fills the space before you even open your mouth. She perceives everything before you utter a single syllable. She reads your essence. She observes how you sit, how long you maintain eye contact, whether your presence fills the room or begs for space. True confidence is silent. It walks unannounced, speaks slowly, moves with certainty, and above all, it doesn't fear loss. That's the attitude you need to embody. I don't need you, but I'm not afraid of you either. This is the stance that turns the entire power dynamic on its head. Once you learn it, she starts to qualify herself to you instead of you having to prove your worth to her. This is the paradox of power in human relationships, and most men never come to understand it. Let me make it visual so you understand it completely. Think about the last time you walked into a car showroom. Do you remember the salesman who harassed you, who stuck to you like a shadow, who kept asking, "Do you like it? Do you want to test drive it?" What do you think? He radiated a desperation you could smell, and you instantly had the advantage because his need diminished his value in your eyes. Now imagine another salesman. He greets you calmly, shows you the car elegantly, then silently retreats. He knows what he's offering. He knows you'll feel it if it's right for you. Suddenly, you feel the need to prove you're worthy of the deal. You start asking questions. You start justifying your interest. It's exactly the same in seduction. When you show that your life is complete, rich in purpose, full of joy, anchored in strength, with or without her, you become the prize, not the desperate hunter, not the emotional beggar who pleads for attention. And women don't chase men they pity. They chase men they respect, men who represent something they desire to achieve or experience. How do you radiate this attitude through your body? Because words lie, but energy never lies. Shoulders relaxed, yet strong. Upright posture that speaks of dignity. Unwavering eye contact that doesn't apologize for existing. Slow and steady breathing. Precise and intentional movements as if you own time itself. No trembling hands. No nervously jumping legs. No fast, anxious speech. You speak as if you trust your silence because studies show that over 90% of communication is nonverbal. She doesn't just listen to you, she feels you in every fiber of her being. And if your energy says, "Please love me," she'll pull away, even if your words say something completely different. But if your presence says, "You are welcome to join me, but I won't bend for approval," she leans into you because detachment is intoxicating. It's addictive. It's what most men never manage to convey. This is the paradox that changes everything. The less you seek validation, the more your value multiplies in her eyes. Most men operate from scarcity, from the fear of loss, from the belief that she is the prize they must win. This approach immediately puts you at a disadvantage. It turns you into a supplicant instead of an equal or a superior. The correct attitude completely reverses this dynamic. You are the prize. You are the one who chooses, who evaluates, who decides if she is worthy of your time and energy. Not because you are arrogant or self-centered, but because you know your worth, and won't compromise it for external approval. When a man enters a social space with this attitude, women instinctively feel it. He doesn't need to announce himself. He doesn't need to actively seek attention. His presence is magnetic on its own. It's as if he has a force field around him, a gravity of his own that attracts effortlessly. Women are evolutionarily programmed to seek high-value men. It's not a conscious choice. It's a deep biological imperative that operates below consciousness. And the most powerful indicator of masculine value isn't physical appearance, isn't money, isn't material possessions. It's the attitude of abundance, the inner certainty that you don't need anything from anyone to be complete. Think of the men you've met who seem to have inexplicable success with women. They probably share this quality. They act as if they could lose her at any moment and be perfectly fine afterward. This isn't an act. It's a state of being that arises naturally when your validation comes from within, not from without. So remember, don't chase her attention, chase your own inner power. When a man becomes magnetic from within, everything outside begins to orbit around him as if he were the gravitational center of his own universe. This isn't manipulation. It's basic physics. Heavier objects attract lighter ones, not the other way around. The irony is that this attitude of detachment doesn't arise from indifference. It arises from abundance. It's not that you don't care. It's that you have so much to give that you don't fear losing a portion. It's not that you don't value her. It's that you value yourself enough not to desperately need her. When you embody this attitude, you become an enigma she wants to solve. You become a mountain she wants to climb, a fire she wants to play with, knowing she might get burned. You become something she can't easily categorize, that she can't manipulate with the tactics that have worked on other men. And so, without saying a word about it, you've established the fundamental dynamic that will fuel her desire. She chases, you attract. She strives, you evaluate. She seeks your approval, you grant it selectively. Not because you're playing games, but because you genuinely have no rush, no desperation, no fear of loss. This is the attitude that creates the framework for everything that follows. Without it, techniques are empty, words are hollow, actions are transparent. With it, even the simplest gestures are charged with meaning and power. And here we come to the third pillar, perhaps the most counterintuitive of all, but also the most potent when mastered correctly: strategic neglect, the art of creating space for desire to flourish. This is the most counterintuitive of all the pillars, the seductive art of stepping back precisely at the peak of connection. Not because you don't care, but because you understand one of the most powerful truths about female desire. Longing creates obsession. Emptiness generates desperate yearning. You know that perfect moment when conversation flows effortlessly, when smiles come naturally, when she's completely present with you, engrossed in your presence, hanging on your every word. Most men believe that's the moment to push forward, to squeeze every last drop out of that connection, to secure the victory. Big mistake. That is precisely the moment to leave, to disappear, just when everything feels most alive and promising. Yes, exactly. At the peak, just when it feels most electric and full of possibilities. You simply say, "I'd love to stay longer, but I have to go. Let's continue this another time." What happens next isn't logical. It's completely chemical and primitive. Her brain releases a considerable amount of dopamine, and then you disappear. You've just become the episode that ends on a cliffhanger, the song that cuts off at the best part, the book that closes just as the plot gets interesting. Think about the last addictive series you watched. It didn't explain everything. It didn't resolve all the plot lines. It left you hungry for more. That's what you must become. Not the 3-hour movie that drags on until everyone loses interest, but the tense, suspenseful episode that leaves her breathless and counting the days until the next season. This calculated neglect goes against everything you've been taught about how to treat a woman you're interested in. Conventional wisdom says you should show her how much you care, that you should be available, that you should prioritize her happiness above all else. But conventional wisdom completely ignores the psychology of desire. Desire doesn't flourish in constant satisfaction. It flourishes in the tension between having and not having, between presence and absence, between certainty and uncertainty. When you eliminate that tension, when you are always available, when you respond to every message instantly, when you make her the center of your universe, you kill the very possibility of desire. This means you don't respond the moment she texts you. You don't answer every call as if you were waiting by the phone. You live your life. You move through your world like a man on a mission. A man who has options, purpose, his own gravity. And when she notices your absence, her emotional radar activates in a way she can't control. Where is he? Who is he with? Why hasn't he replied? And in that moment, she's not just thinking about you. She's feeling you. Now you're looping in her mind, playing your voice, rereading your last text as if it were a secret code she needs to decipher. This is the crucial shift when she starts to chase you, not out of strategy, but out of tension, unresolved emotion, longing for resolution. That's what most men never understand. They stay too long, respond too quickly, eliminate all tension, and in doing so, kill desire in its cradle. But you will learn to gracefully walk away, to leave her with a taste, not the full meal, to create silences that resonate louder than words. Because that is the most beautiful and cruel paradox. The less she has of you, the more she will need you. This isn't blind arrogance. It's not calculated manipulation. It's pure psychology expertly applied. And the man who masters it doesn't chase like a desperate predator. He attracts by letting go, he pulls by releasing, he conquers by retreating at the perfect moment. Have you noticed how we become more obsessed with what we can't fully resolve, with what we can't easily have? It's the reason puzzles keep us up at night, why difficult video games hook us more than easy ones, why novels with ambiguous endings haunt us for days. The human brain is designed to seek patterns, to solve problems, to close open loops. When you leave an open loop in a woman's mind, her brain will work incessantly to close it. She'll think about you when she should be focusing on other things. She'll dream about you when she should be resting. She'll talk about you with her friends when she should be talking about anything else. You've created a void that only you can fill, a question only you can answer, a tension only you can resolve. And in that space, in that carefully created absence, her desire for you grows exponentially. Most men fear creating space because they're afraid of being forgotten. They believe that if they're not constantly present, she'll find someone else, lose interest, move on. This scarcity mindset is precisely what makes them forgettable. Abundance creates value. Scarcity destroys it. A man who understands his own worth isn't afraid to step back. He knows his absence will create longing, not relief. He knows his return will be anticipated, not feared. He knows that in the space between encounters, in the silence between words, in the pause between touches, is where true desire takes root and flourishes. Remember that the neglect we're talking about isn't cruelty or actual indifference. It's strategic space, it's deliberate tension, it's the conscious recognition that desire needs air to breathe, distance to grow, time to intensify. It's not about playing games for the sake of playing games. It's about understanding the fundamental laws of human psychology and working with them, not against them. It's like learning to sail with the wind, not against it. You can resist these truths because they seem contrary to what you've been taught about love and relationships. But in doing so, you only condemn yourself to keep experiencing the same disappointing results. Strategic neglect isn't forever. It's a tool used at specific moments to awaken and keep desire alive. Once you've established that dynamic, once she's completely emotionally invested, you can allow yourself more presence, more availability, more direct connection. But even then, the underlying principle remains valid. What comes too easily is valued little. And so we come to the fourth pillar, the one that will definitively separate the boys from the men, the theorists from the practitioners, those who dream from those who conquer. Audacity, the power of decisive action when everything is on the line. Take the initiative and escalate the interaction when necessary, without paralyzing doubts. This is the moment of truth where most men fail miserably, where all previous pillars crumble if you don't have the courage to act. You've created attraction, you've built emotional tension, you've played the game of detachment. Now you need to act decisively. And here's where fear appears in all its ugliness. The fear of rejection, the fear of ruining everything you've built, the fear of being seen as invasive or inappropriate. But let me tell you a secret that will transform your perspective forever. Women want you to take the initiative. They fantasize about a man who knows what he wants and isn't afraid to go for it without apologizing for his masculinity. Almost no one realizes this, but hesitation kills more opportunities than rejection itself. When you feel the moment is right, you must act without asking permission, without asking if you can. You read her signals and advance with the confidence of someone who understands the silent language of desire. It could be taking her hand as you walk. It could be pulling her closer during a conversation. It could be that perfect kiss at the moment when silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. Calculated audacity is what separates men from boys who play at being men. It's what makes her mention you to her friends the next day. It's what creates impactful memories she can't forget, even if she wanted to. Are you ready for this level of intensity and commitment? Now I know what you must be thinking, and let's clarify it once and for all. This is not manipulation in the toxic sense of the word. It's not being a heartless jerk. Manipulation is when you lie, deceive, or do something against her will. What I'm teaching you is exactly the opposite. It's about being authentic in your masculinity, understanding what truly creates attraction, and acting accordingly with that understanding. Think with me. When a woman puts on makeup, chooses a beautiful outfit, wears a special perfume, is she being manipulative? Of course not. She's presenting herself in the best possible way. She's using tools to make herself more attractive. That's exactly what you're doing. Using psychological tools to awaken genuine attraction. It's not about deceiving anyone or creating a false personality. It's about being the best version of yourself, the most authentic and powerful. And let me tell you something few men know. Women want to be seduced. They dream about it, read books about it, watch movies about it, but they want to be seduced by a real man, not by an insecure guy who apologizes for existing, not by a man who is afraid of his own shadow. They want to feel that chill in their stomach, that tension in the air, that game of glances that says more than 1,000 empty conversations. And when you master the secret code I'm revealing to you, you become that man. You become the guy they can't get out of their heads, the mystery that keeps them awake thinking. Audacity is not aggression, it's not disrespect, it's not ignoring her boundaries. True audacity is the confident expression of your genuine desire, the fluid and natural movement that arises from real connection, the decisive action that is perfectly synchronized with the moment. An audacious man reads body language as if it were an open book. He observes the microsignals that tell him exactly when to advance and when to retreat. He doesn't need to ask verbally, because he's so tuned into the energy of the interaction that he instinctively knows what to do and when to do it, too. Most men fail here because they are too much in their heads. They're so worried about what could go wrong, so terrified by the possibility of rejection, so paralyzed by confusing social messages that they let the perfect moment pass. And once that moment passes, it rarely returns with the same intensity. Remember that chess metaphor I mentioned at the beginning? Every interaction with a woman is a game, and while most men play defensively, afraid of losing the queen, you will be 3 moves ahead. You'll know when to advance, when to retreat, when to sacrifice a piece to win the entire game. And most importantly, you'll play to win, not to avoid losing. There's an abysmal difference between these two mentalities. Playing not to lose is what keeps you in the friend zone. It's what makes you afraid to take risks. It's what leaves you paralyzed in inaction. Playing to win is taking calculated risks. It's understanding that some defeats are part of the learning process. It's knowing that every no brings you closer to a definitive yes. And here's another secret almost no one applies in real life. The more you practice, the more natural all of this becomes. At first, it might feel strange. It might feel like you're playing a role that isn't yours, but over time, these behaviors become part of who you truly are. You no longer need to think about every move. Your instinct already knows what to do without your conscious mind interfering. It's like learning to drive. At first, you think about every action: clutch, shift, accelerator, brake. After a while, you do it all automatically while chatting with a passenger. Seduction works the same way. The more you practice the pillars of the system I'm revealing to you, the more natural they become, to the point where you no longer need to think. You simply are this high-value man. Genuine audacity is irresistible because it's extremely rare. In a world where most men have been conditioned to doubt themselves, to ask permission, to fear their own power, a man who acts with decisive certainty stands out like a lighthouse in the night. It's not just attractive, it's revolutionary. When you act with calibrated audacity, you give her something she secretly craves, but rarely experiences: the release from responsibility. In a society where women are constantly forced to make decisions, to be in control, to manage 1,000 responsibilities, There's a deep pleasure in temporarily surrendering to the confident decision of a man who knows exactly what he wants. You're not taking away her power. You're offering her a reprieve from the constant burden of having to decide everything. You're not ignoring her consent. You're creating a space where she can surrender to her desire without feeling like she has to orchestrate every step of the way. This is the final paradox of seduction. True freedom is sometimes found in temporary surrender, and true power is sometimes best expressed through receptivity rather than initiative. When you understand this dynamic, you've unlocked the secret code that so few men comprehend. And so, the fourth pillar naturally leads us to the element that ties everything together. The magnetic touch, the primordial language that speaks directly to the subconscious and seals your presence in her physical memory. Let's talk now about something crucial that most people overlook: the magnetic touch. This has nothing to do with uncontrolled lust. It's not about groping or forcing situations. This is an ancestral ritual, a primitive language that transcends words. Touch is humanity's oldest language, older than words, deeper than logic. It bypasses the conscious mind and speaks directly to the subconscious, where real decisions are made. But here's the secret that changes everything. She's not attracted to the touch itself. She's attracted to the way it happens. Its perfect timing, its rhythm, its clear intention. The right touch at the right time can etch a memory into her body in a way that will last forever. But the wrong touch, the rushed, the forced, kills everything instantly. How does it begin then? Not with blind audacity, but with calculated innocence. A light touch on her shoulder as you laugh at something she said. A hand gently guiding her through a doorway. A slow, playful high five that lingers half a second longer than normal. Moments that feel natural, but leave an indelible mark. You escalate not through pressure, but through presence. You touch and then withdraw. And that withdrawal is everything. It creates absence, and absence creates longing. This is what most men never understand. Touch isn't about contact. It's about what happens in the moment after. Because when you touch and then stop, her body feels the silence and begins to miss you before you've even left. This is intermittent touch, the psychological equivalent of a heartbeat. On, off, near, far, safe, dangerous. It builds a tension she can't name. It floods her system with oxytocin and dopamine, the same chemicals released during pleasure and connection. But you're not connecting. You're imprinting yourself on her nervous system like a mark she'll never be able to erase. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more natural it seems, the more powerful it becomes. You shouldn't telegraph intention. You shouldn't hesitate. You touch like a man who has done it 1,000 times, not because you're desperate, but because you are centered within yourself. Your hand doesn't ask for permission. It reads her reaction. If she leans into you, you know. If she pulls away, you adapt. Because masculine touch isn't invasive, it's observant. It listens with the skin. And when used correctly, it makes her feel something terribly rare in the modern world. A man who is in control of himself and attuned to her at the same time. That is magnetic. That's what keeps her awake at night. Because long after words are forgotten, she will remember how you made her feel. Not in her mind, in her body. There is one last weapon you must master. One that most men don't even think about. Cold reading. It's not magic. It's precision. The silent art of reading what she wants before she even knows it. Because every woman leaves subtle clues, not in her words, but in her patterns. The way she dresses, the speed of her voice, the rhythm of her walk, what she posts online, where she goes, what she avoids. You are no longer just a man. You are an emotional detective reading between the lines, tracing the energy behind the words, feeling the signals she doesn't say aloud. A woman who wears flashy, shiny jewelry is screaming for attention. She wants the spotlight and confirmation that she still has it. A woman in subtle, elegant tones is deeper, more private. She yearns to be understood, not just superficially seen. Observe her way of speaking. If she speaks fast, gestures widely, is spontaneous, reactive, guided by pure feeling. If she speaks slowly, carefully, she is calculated, guarded, strategic in every move. And when you adjust your energy to match her hidden nature, when you reflect what she truly needs without her asking, you become irresistible because you're not offering what she's consciously demanding. You're offering what she's secretly dying to receive. That is real power. the understanding that every human being hungers for something they can't even articulate. But here's the trap most men fall into. They try to do everything instantly. They gorge themselves on techniques, force results, imitate, act, play a script that isn't theirs. But this isn't acting. It's the embodiment of your true masculine nature. So slow down, start with just one pillar. Apply it for a week until it becomes real, until it's part of you. Then another and another, until the system isn't something you memorize, but something you are. Because this method I'm giving you isn't about becoming someone else. It's about freeing the real you, the alpha that society buried under years of shame, guilt, and conditioning that made you believe your masculinity was something to apologize for. Desire thrives on unpredictability. Like any human impulse, it intensifies when the reward isn't constant or guaranteed. If you are always available, if you are always the one initiating intimacy, if you are always willing to please, your reward loses value. Most men make the mistake of becoming constant dispensers of pleasure, unaware that excessive availability kills longing. Machiavelli, a master at using reward to maintain loyalty, or, in this case, desire, would say, "Men love at their convenience, but fear your discretion." In this context, the fear is her fear of not knowing when or if that reward, your desire, will return. Your mistake is to become an inexhaustible source of sexual attention, a faucet she can turn on at will. The Machiavellian solution is to administer your reward selectively. This doesn't mean denying sex or affection. It means that access to your intimacy, your desire, your sexual energy isn't a right. It's earned and must be maintained. Create moments of intensity, then pull back with subtle distance. Let her miss you. Let her crave the next encounter. Don't always be the one to initiate. Let her chase you. Let her feel she has to earn your attention, that she has to remind you why she excites you. When desire isn't guaranteed, when there's enough uncertainty about when and how the spark will return, she invests more in you. Her mind becomes obsessed with earning your attention, with rekindling your desire. The scarcity of reward activates her dopamine system, creating a cycle of craving and satisfaction that keeps her constantly wanting more of you. You become the only man who gives her that dopamine rush that never settles into monotony. Manipulation or mastery? Now I know what many might be thinking. A voice in your head may have whispered, "Is this manipulation?" Let me answer clearly and unequivocally, no. Allow me to define harmful manipulation: lying, deceiving, coercing to control another person, stripping them of their will and using them for personal gain, causing harm. That's not what we're doing here. What we've discussed is reading the terrain, understanding the nature of human desire, recognizing the psychological dynamics that are already at play in every sexual interaction, whether you're aware of them or not. This is about using what already exists. The only difference is that this time you play with strategic awareness. You are not the one being manipulated. Think about it. Doesn't she respond to mystery? Doesn't she respond to authority? Doesn't she crave what is difficult to get? Doesn't she hide secret fantasies? Doesn't she get bored when pleasure is always available? Yes, these are human predispositions, and when properly activated, they awaken the most powerful desire. She operates by instinct, without thinking about the rules. You, by understanding the rules, now have the opportunity to become conscious, to be strategic, to be intentional in how you ignite and maintain that fire. It's not about being a predator, it's about becoming a master in the art of attraction. Silence speaks when words fall silent. Do you feel it? That emptiness that remains when the illusion fades, when you understand that she never loved you as you believed, that everything was a mirage built on your own needs. That emptiness is your first step towards freedom. That emptiness is the door through which the monster you've always been will emerge. Now you find yourself on the razor's edge, between the domesticated man you've pretended to be and the predator that has always dwelled in the shadows of your being. Every second you keep hesitating, another man is applying what you've just learned. Every moment of hesitation is one less woman in your life, an unfulfilled desire, a lost opportunity that will never return. The question isn't whether you can master this knowledge, but whether you dare to use it, whether you have the courage to look in the mirror and recognize that the cage you've lived in has an open door. It always has. Most will remain in it for fear of what's outside, but you are not most people. You've come this far, you've heard truths others fear to utter. Knowledge without action is dead. And time, my friend, waits for no one. 5 years from now, what will you choose to remember? The excuses you told yourself, or the conquests you achieved? If this message resonated deep within your being, comment right now. I become fire. This is just the beginning. In our next encounter, I will reveal the final secret, the one that separates masters from mere practitioners. The choice is yours. It always has been.